Hello, welcome everyone to Oakland Creates Art Makers series. I'm super blessed to have amazing creative Amir. Say your last name is
Abdul
Shakir?
Shakur.
Shakur. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to share my screen and have you introduce yourself. Bear with me as I pull up the slides. Can you see the slides?
I cannot. Oh, wait, it's
There we
loading.
go.
All right, there we go.
All right, so just
All right.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am Amir Abdul-Shakur, also known as Amir the photographer. I've been doing photography for the past 7 years. I capture a whole bunch of different things from landscape photography to street portraits. Started in 2018 at the Black Joy Parade, using that as a kind of catapult to kind of jump into the creative kind of realm. I've been doing photos for a lot longer, but 2018 is where I really started. And I just want to show people in a beautiful light. And so that's kind of what my main focus and purpose is in photography. I've been really blessed to do it. So thank you for having me.
Of course. Awesome. Awesome. So let's jump right into some of your images. I was introduced to your work, like you said, at the Black Joy Parade. I saw the images. They posted them on Instagram, and I was part of the organizing team for San Francisco Zine Fest. So I asked them, I think just post-COVID, to hire you as a photographer. And then it was awesome when I became a guest of honor that you came and photographed me that day and the festival. So let's jump into some of the choices that you make, because, like you said, you want to show people in a really positive light. But I feel like you capture so much essence of a person, maybe with your lighting or just the point of view or perspective.
Yeah.
Um, Talk a little bit about just how you set up your lighting, because I feel like other photographers just don't get the skin as beautifully or like captured, like, just the
Yeah.
setup. I don't know what the technical
Yeah.
term is for
Yeah.
photography,
You
but
know, everything is situational. A lot of my photography is usually just kind of run and gun out in the open, meeting strangers for the first time and really trying to build connections. So everything is really kind of instantaneous and a moment's notice. For me, it just depends on if I can kind of predict just what the lighting situation is. I think lighting, as you said, is so critical to a photo. It brings out a lot of elements. For me, I want to try to control that as much as possible. And so if I'm outside, I'm trying to use a diffuser or I'm trying to be in a shaded spot or hopefully that's overcast. But in these pictures right here, I just had a little kind of LED light with me because when you're indoors, everything's going to be really dark. And so one thing I like in these situations is to use a constant light as opposed to a flash, just because tend to be more relaxed with a
Mhm.
constant light versus just something popping, you know, multiple times. And so, yeah, these are photos that I took at the Zine Fest, and I'm really gracious that folks let me, kind of get some shots of them. Um,
Yeah,
and
because
so, it's kind of, yeah,
I feel like also too the point of view that you take too, because sometimes uh, I don't know if it's more dramatic, or I feel like some of your images you're capturing them and putting them on a platform, even though they're not standing. So it's, I think, how you are
yeah.
composing the pictures. Can
Mhm.
you talk a little bit about that and how you elevate the person by the perspective that you're taking?
Yeah, I kind of joke with my wife about that particular angle that I like to call the Amir angle. Yeah, it's kind of from downward up where I like to think of it as very like a graceful kind of pose where I'm underneath and the subject is looking more stoic. And I tend to like that look. Is tend to be looking towards the light, kind of like that double entendre where you're looking towards something greater, something towards the future.
Mm.
I always think that looks pretty good. It's just, everyone has their own preference. It just depends on the situation. So if I'm, you know, if I'm out there, it just really depends. If I'm having a prime lens and I'm getting closer, if I'm doing it from afar, my zoom lens is enough. But these are yeah, I just had a wide angle for this one and just had just the lighting. As long as my lighting was good, I was good.
Wow. Two, and then you get I don't know how you achieve, like, when people are moving, if it's the camera you use or if you're fractioning. I think that's what it's called, right? Where you change the f-stop on the camera and then take like several at different stops. because you're
Yeah.
not getting any blur and you're not really blurring the background too much. I'm
Yeah.
amazed by that too.
Yeah, just the type of camera that yeah, it just depends on the lens. If I get enough lighting, then you can usually kind of increase the f-stop so you can get more detail in the frame. But in these situations, you want to kind of keep your ISO as low as possible, and then you know, you kind of playing with your shutter speed. And that's kind of the mindset in here. But usually in these situations, I'm already kind of figured out what my shutter speed is, and so that way I'm doing it above what it needs to be to not be blurry. And so that's kind of like a photographer's choice. Sometimes people love the blur. It's more situational.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Because yeah, there's a lot of information in these photos in the background, especially when you're doing something like a protest or a street event, and
Corey.
you want to you want to capture these people in motion, but you don't want the eye to be distracted by what is happening in the background.
Yeah, this picture of Cory Booker I took a couple months ago while visiting DC. You know, it's just one of the things where you're trying to capture the essence of a moment, and you're trying to, you know, find the humanity in people, even in someone like Cory Booker, who, you know, I respect as a politician, but I'm disappointed in some of his choices, and so.
Yeah, fancy
Um,
controversial.
yeah, very controversial. Him and Hakeem Jeffries, who I also took, they're in the same, they were there the same day. It's just really just trying to figure out how can I position myself in the best way to kind of get the image that I want. And so, yeah, you gotta kind of, you know, make space and kind of, you know, move your elbows and get into position. But once you're there, you get your shots.
Well, one thing I really appreciate, I don't know if I ever told you, is the painterly style that you have because your photography, even though it's street photography, is so well composed and so well thought out. And the way that you're framing your photographs, I really feel like that is what draws people's eyes to
Mhm.
the subject. Like in this particular one, the way the light is bouncing off the skin, where
Mhm.
you're actually almost getting the pores in the skin in the foreground,
Yeah,
and then it, like you said, use that blur technique in the background where you allow that to frame his face. It's such
yeah,
an awesome, almost like an official portraiture style, and you're getting it on the run, on the go. And
yeah.
I don't see too many photographers do that with dark subject matter, black, brown skin, beautiful, crisp, detail and contrast.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah,
just amazing what you're doing.
yeah, it's something that I'm really just grateful to have the opportunity to do. A lot of these folks I meet for the first time, like this particular picture of a brother named Jet. That was my first time meeting him. This is probably like 7 years ago, I think. And we met real quick, and I had a diffuser like because it was really bright on that particular day, and I had my wife help me kind of, you know, cast it over. But I saw just the features in the skin that stood out to me. The earring that he had, that stood out to me because it was very unique, is kind of non-traditional. He just had a very kind of just a appealing look to me.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what kind of prompted the picture. It was like I see something, and so you know, I'm really just you know, grateful that people allow me to kind of capture those images.
Yeah, you definitely captured it very well.
One of my favorites.
And then talk a little bit too. I feel like the humanity of our brothers you capture so well, and it tells such a wonderful, it creates a narrative, a wonderful story, and you're like a storyteller with the camera, and that I think is so important too. And can you talk a little bit about your intent in that area, or is that your intent? Maybe it isn't.
Yeah, my intent is always just to paint people in a beautiful light, and that is something that I've kind of carried throughout from day one. Always been about intention, always been about just making sure that just trying to respect the process. With this particular photo, this was another kind of once in a lifetime situation. This is brother Rashad Pridgeon, Soul Nubian, and got a chance to meet him at Life is Living. And it was one situation where this particular picture kind of just spoke, it kind of just stood out. He was wearing all white, and we're getting towards sunset. So the sun is kind of like starting to drop. And he kind of just stood, it was really like like an angelic kind of thing. And it just stood out like I can't really describe like a bright light. and
Mm,
you kind of even see it in the photo where it was just so much light, and I was like, hey, can I get your photo? Like it just stood out, and I like when I seen him, I was like, if I can't miss this opportunity. And a lot of times with photography, especially for me that deals with anxiety, I have to pick and choose on when I decide to kind of go across that. And so with this one, with this particular kind of setup, I decided to go against that anxiety and ask him for his photo, and he was gracious enough to allow it to happen. And turned out to be a very not only just a very beautiful photo, but one that his family loved because he ended up passing away
mm,
last year. And so the family asked me to, for the photo, and I, gave it to him, and they were able to use it for celebration of life and stuff like that. So
right.
it really kind of, was really a big thing for me, and it's just something that really humbles me when anyone kind of has that attachment to a photo.
Yeah, I mean, you captured such a great sensitivity, especially in his eyes. Like you said, it's almost angelic, right?
Yeah.
And then I think let me move this out of the frame. The color, the pops of color that I think you don't even recognize yourself that you're catching in real time, right? The combinations of the color that your eyes dance around the photograph. Like I said, like a painting, like you seem to approach it like I would with a
Hmm.
painting, and really giving the viewer space to enter the photograph, right? And
Hmm.
I think that is a super dynamic thing. Like I said, especially on the fly or on the street, and you
Yeah.
just meeting these people for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. The picture to the left of the sister, I think if I remember correctly, her name is Jasleen Berry. And this was like the first day. So the picture on the left is the picture that was the first day that I went out and did photography at the Black Joy
Wow.
back in 2018. So these were like the first images that were taking of folks. And she, graciously allowed me to take the photo. And my mindset for this particular photo was just trying to isolate the subject, and I had a lot of shadow drop off in the back, as you can kind of see. I think there's some of the scraper bikes in the background, but they kind of dropped off, and I just thought it was just a really good way to kind of isolate the subject, and where she's the main focus of the image. And I just try to not to have too many distractions, so even the people in the back are not looking at the camera and just kind of out of frame. So that's all intentional. And then the picture on the right, is my guy Dev, and I just happened to see him just at Black Joy in another year, and he was just chilling. And I really don't try to like reposition my subjects. If I see them in the moment, my mind kind of just kind of creates what I want to see, and then that's pretty much. I didn't even have to really kind of direct them or move. I just kind of seen the young man in the back, and I seen Dev in the front. I just kind of position myself to kind of capture
That's
those two.
That's awesome. That's what I was gonna ask you. How much of a director do you find yourself becoming, or do you let it happen? Do you just let it flow?
It depends on the situation. You're letting it flow when it just depends on how much the subject is going to allow you to kind of capture how much time I have. Sometimes a lot of these times is very instantaneous, 3 to 5 seconds. Hey, can I get your photo? Cool. Snap, 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 and keep it moving.
Nice.
If I have more time, then it becomes a little bit more intentional, a little bit more deliberate as far as like kind of the framing and so forth. But yeah, the picture on the right is from a photo walk, and so I had someone that kind of was very fashionable and just kind of stood out, and I was like, hey, let me get a couple shots, and they were just, they were ready to go. And then my guy Ali on the side was at a we was at a Eid prayer, and so just seeing him at the prayer, hey man, I just loved his aesthetic, and he
Yeah,
let me get a couple shots.
gorgeous. Yeah, I was gonna ask, are you more particular? Are you more attracted to color, or you just more thinking about the frame, or maybe a little bit of both?
Probably all. I mean, to be honest, it just really depends on the situation. I just if I see the subject and then I look at subject and then how I want to frame them. And yeah, it's kind of a combination. So, I try a couple of different shots, and then it really comes down to what I like as a photographer, what I think is the best representation of that subject. So, whether it's a fellow photographer such as my brother Raymond on the side, or
Mhm.
just other folks, you just trying to figure out what is the best kind of recipe for the photo. But these are both photos I love.
Yeah,
Uh,
his outfits are legendary, so you gotta get
it came with it too.
you gotta
Like,
get that one because oh my God, he dresses so dapper.
absolutely. And these are like connections to Africa. So the picture on the right, I took last year visiting Senegal for the first time. And this is during the Eid. So the Eid is a Islamic holiday where people are celebrating after a month of fasting. And so the sister on the right was right outside of a mall, her and her friend, and just decided that I just thought that she was beautiful. As far as the her skin tone,
Skin is just the melanin is popping.
yeah,
So
that
Eid is the culmination of Ramadan, right?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have two Eids, and so one at the end of Ramadan, and then one signaling the pilgrimage to Mecca. But yeah, when I saw her outfit with the blue, and it was really like this kind of royal blue, and it was just kind of white. It just stood out to me, and so yeah,
Elegant. Yeah, it's
yeah,
very
elegant. And then my brother on the side, yeah, that was
to
a
go
this
back.
really solid. Just anything about this Pan-Africanism, just showing pride in who you are. I mean, I took that in East Oakland, about a block away from where I grew up, and so a minister of confrontation right there. Solid brother, man.
Nice. So I also like too the some of the I didn't pull as many images of architecture, but I was looking through your visit to Washington
Mhm.
DC, and then I think you also went to Brooklyn. Talk a little bit about capturing architecture or even just non-human subjects, because I think that's fascinating too.
Yeah, it's something I'm starting to get more, more accustomed to, and I like it. I'm learning more about it because I mean, in photography, there's so many different aspects to it. I mean, whether it's long shutter photography, whether it's black and whites, whether it's architecture, geometry. I mean, it really goes deep. And so when I do subjects, I have my mindset, but then just trying to, see, just, your architecture, your structures. It's just something that when I see it, it's just something that appeals to me. I'll just take a shot. So I was in a mosque in Senegal, and it was a very, beautiful mosque, and I happened to be on the second level, and I just happened to look out, and they had this, the mosaics, and I just thought it was just really fresh, and so I took a shot of that. Yeah, Africa's dope. Go to Africa if you haven't been. Definitely go. Definitely recommend that.
That is on my bucket list. I
Yeah,
mean, my dad is actually from Ghana. I never met him, but I do plan on going to Ghana because I supposedly have a big family there, but I have not met him or met the family. But the sister on the right, might
right.
be your left, my right.
Yeah.
Man, when I got that image, I bought that image of her in color from you.
Hmm.
I did this wonderful watercolor painting, and wouldn't you know, during after the fire and I moved, I
Uh,
lost that painting.
wow.
And it's here somewhere, but I just misplaced it. And I was so proud of that painting. So maybe I'll have to do it again. I still have
Wow.
the photograph, but I was like, you don't want to start again and post.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I've been looking through all of my portfolios. It's like 11 by 14 watercolor painting because she has that beautiful green and turquoise hair.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah, Maddie
like,
Dangerously from
oh,
yeah, she lives in she's from Brooklyn. Well, not she's from the East Coast, but lives out in Brooklyn, and she was visiting the Bay Area. So we took that back in, I want to say 2018, 2019, when I was still just kind of just starting, and I was like, hey, let's go to Jack London and let's do some photos. And she was like, yeah, I'm down. And so we went there and took some shots, and I mean, I love those photos from that day. It was really, really cool.
yeah,
Uh,
those are awesome.
yeah.
I mean, maybe I'll start. I have the ink. I did the ink drawing and scanned it in,
Mhm.
and I have that, and then I started painting over that because I always, archive it like as ink drawing
Yeah.
first before I
Mhm.
start painting. But maybe I'll just have to print it out and start painting again from scratch. But I was like, you're in the moment and you feel like, oh, this painting is perfect, and then I don't know what I did with it. I'm so
Uh,
mad at myself.
yeah, I got photos that like, oh, I remember a photo I've taken, and I'm trying to pinpoint like when did I take it, and that's yeah, heavy get real. Yeah,
So one thing
bam.
too, I wanted to give you your flowers for always including your family, your beautiful family, wife and son. I do see them helping you sometimes, but I think the capture too is like a, mini document of your life, and tells the story of your beautiful love story and then, having your baby. I just want to give you flowers for always
Thank
bringing
you.
that to the front as a family man. I just really commend you on that. Um,
Thank you.
can you talk a little bit about did you think about the documentary style or process of making sure you captured, I'm so sorry, is it Zaire?
So yeah.
Yeah, as he grew up and and just different increments I could see when you first met. You have images of
Mhm.
you and Nancy, and then did you think about that beforehand? Is that something that you just decided to do later?
That documenting has always kind of been a part of my life. When growing up, I lost my mom at 13, so
Mm.
losing a parent at a young age, you get to learn how to value moments. And that's kind of, I think that was the catalyst for photography, being able to kind of appreciate moments and being able to kind of know when a moment is happening and be there. And then when I became a father, that was another kind of step up. And so when I became a father, it became about capturing my son's, development. So from the time he came out to every milestone, I tried to make sure I captured. And so got to the point where he was like, "Come on, Dad," when he was younger, and now he's cool about it. And now he's even for him now as a teenager going into film, getting a lot of his influences from me. But it started out just from a love of my son and love of my wife, and um, that kind of over the years of just as he was growing up, I was kind of just getting practice doing photography, whether it was with,
Oh,
with my
right.
phone and just, this inadvertently learning how to frame, learning how to get the shot that I want. And for me, I've always kind of had the photographer's eye, I guess is what they call it. And
Right.
just kind of really refining it, through time and just kind of just getting comfortable. Nowadays, I'm just really comfortable in who I am and what my skill set is. But yeah, it started off from just being a father and just, wanting to have some dope photos of my kid. But yeah,
So, can you talk a little bit too about how do you set up self-portraits? Is there a tripod, a timer? How do you figure that? How do you work that out?
yeah, the picture on the left, my son's Zaire, I took that directly. And with some of my subjects, I like to have them close their eyes and kind of have a kind of a moment where they're kind of at peace, and I kind of like that. The picture on the right of myself, that is a tripod thing. Me and my wife went out a few weeks ago and got a chance to catch some sunrises, and so we had our tripod, a monopod, and was able to kind of set it up. But in those situations, you just gotta, gotta know what kind of f-stop you want to be at, and then, just making sure your ISO is low as possible, and just putting it on a tripod. And when you use a tripod, you can kind of drop your shutter even lower, and that's kind of why people use it.
Uh,
So that way you can, get some cool effects and all that good stuff.
yeah, the lighting is superb.
Yeah, that's that
Awesome.
morning light.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so we can see your lovely face and jump into these interview questions. So my first question, I think I know somewhat of the answer. So where did you grow up?
Grew up in Oakland. I was born in the city, San Francisco, but we got displaced and spent my formative years in East Oakland. So from kindergarten to eighth grade to my mom passing, I stayed in East Oakland.
Wow, wow.
Yeah. So I'm from the
Um,
ghetto.
a lot of us are.
Yeah.
I was born in Minnesota and moved to Richmond. Uh, so
That's that's night and day.
exactly.
Yeah. Man.
So, where did you go to high school and all that?
So in high school, so my mom passed when I was at eighth grade. So high school I spent in Southern California. So I went to two schools, so Long Beach Poly and then Bellflower High. So Long Beach Poly is a big football school in Long Beach, and then Bellflower's right outside of there. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow. So,
it moved back up.
so speaking of that, so do you think the influence, because you said from kindergarten to eighth, do you
Mhm.
feel like East Oakland influenced you more, or because, once you hit a certain age, your sort of personality is set? Do you think LA more? Do you, cite East Oakland with how you became, your formative years? Um,
Absolutely. East Oakland, because I mean, my experience growing up is just pretty much East Oakland. So, like, seeing different folks, the elders, seeing people in the church, going to church. I was a Christian in those days. And so, being a part of the community, having people at Carter Park, play a role in my life, people at Cox Elementary or Elmhurst Middle, those people played a role in who I am. And so, yeah, the LA years was a very kind of transformative time. Anytime that you going through a big change such as losing a parent, it becomes a big thing. And then getting to know my father, who I didn't know, that was a
Mm,
whole kind of learning aspect. Had stepbrothers and the whole nine. So that
wow.
was a journey. And then dealing with the culture between the Bay Area and LA, there is night and day.
Right.
Dealing with gang culture, dealing with learning those things. It was, got put through the fire. Luckily, I made it out without being harmed, but I definitely have some experiences. So as far as my photographer's eye, I would have to say Oakland, just because the richness of the city, the home of the Black Panthers, home of Black Lives Matter, but just even growing up there, just home. So like all my experiences, the things that I want to capture, kind of stems from my experiences growing up in Oakland.
Yeah, I was gonna say I spent a lot of summers. Like I said, I grew up in Richmond, but my cousin lived in East Oakland, so summer I'd go over there, and East Oakland has a very specific vibe, right?
Mhm.
And I don't want to say it makes you tougher, but it just does. It instills this. I don't want to say
Fearlessness.
grit, but it's just got this. I don't know, family vibe, but like a challenging vibe. Like you have to be on your P's and Q's if you hang out in East Oakland. Like you
Yeah, you got to know your surroundings. You got to know the area. What I mean, even for me, someone that's from there, there's still certain times I won't go. So you just got to be
Mhm.
smart. And anytime I do go back home, is always to try to serve. So either going in my photography, photographer kind of hat on, or just as a community member. Especially when I was living in Oakland, that was a big thing. So Oakland is always going to have a special place. It's something that I have tattooed on my arm, and
Oh
and
wow. Nice.
something that I'll never forget my experiences there. Will I ever move back? Absolutely not. But but as far as going to, I mean, I go to Oakland all the time, but just everyone, that was just like the formative years where I learned how to, got into my fights and going and riding bikes and jumping on the 40L, the 82, or going,
Yeah. Yeah.
going to
Eastmont
Eastmont,
Mall.
yeah, or Bayfair, those are things I remember growing up. So I never forget those things. I love Oakland, and that's why I always feel the need to kind of go back and serve. So when I had that picture that you showed of the brother holding the RBG flag, that was a block away from where I grew up, and I just felt like they had a peace walk in my old neighborhood, with Mr.
Mhm.
Fab and Unc and all those, and I was like, I would feel wrong if this peace walk happened. I just wasn't a part of it, so I ended up pulling up and taking some shots. So
Yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, the riding the well, it was the 40 down the Eastmont Mall or going to T.Y. Uzi Records or
yeah, that
those
is
were the days.
so be and just those things I just love. What I mean, we're seeing Linnell on camera, or when they, people crate call and or the Gong Show, or just Scotty's check cashing, and just all these different things that that are no longer here, that that I love. Sweet Jimmy's.
Yeah.
My mom used to go in and party it up at Sweet Jimmy's, and
But when you can actually see them cruising
Mhm.
down International, the cars, just all the.
East Bay Dragons, and
Yeah.
it's so much history. That's why I'm always going to be grateful. And but I have a shared history. I have family in San Francisco, extensive history in the city. My grandmother worked for Muni for a ton of years and owned property in San Francisco. I had an uncle who was a business owner in San Francisco. So I have this kind of all over. Like, grew up
Yeah.
born in the city, grew up in Oakland, went to high school in LA, met my wife in Sacramento. So
Mm.
pretty much
It's
all
so
over.
I was gonna say so all around.